grandparents who have children or grandchildren of different genders, where bathrooms matter deeply. And so when we come into spaces that have gendered bathrooms, most of us who are cisgendered, where our gender identity aligns with how we were assigned at birth, most of us who are able-bodied, we don't have to think twice. We just pick men, women, we go where we need to go. But gendered bathrooms say to our trans and non-binary and gender non-conforming friends and members, we have no place for you here. It says to our folks who might need assistance from someone of a different gender, or to our parents or grandparents, we don't have space for you here. And so this is a story about Refugia in the sense of trying to create safe spaces where everyone can use the bathroom. Because it's not a trans right, it's a human right, right? And it's not an able-bodied right, it's a human right. And especially right now in these times, especially when our bathrooms are being legislated and people are being excluded, it's really all the more important for us as people of faith to create that refugia, to create those spaces where people can safely go to the bathroom. So if you go to the next slide, as I've already mentioned, we know there are all kinds of problems with the binary. That it can cause hurt and shame for many people, that it fails to recognize the gender as a spectrum when you have to choose, and of course it fails to leave out anyone who might need assistance in the bathroom. So when we are thinking about or telling this story, it's hard to know really where to begin the story, but I'll say this story started 32 years ago in 1993 when our church became open and affirming. Like many of you all, our congregation also wanted to make a public stand and talk about how we welcomed our lesbian, gay, and bisexual members and friends and the members of the community. And so after several years and rounds of conversation, we voted to become open and affirming in 1993. 15 years later, we realized that we needed to be more explicit about our welcome of trans members and friends. And so in 2008, again, after lots of education, the church voted to expand its open and affirming statement to include gender identity and gender expression. As we lived into that, we quickly realized by about 2015 that that wasn't enough, that our words and our signs and our flags were all really nice, but our bathrooms were starting to be a problem because our trans and non-binary folks who came often wouldn't stay because the facility was not working for them, not safe for them. We listened, we tried our best. We came up with all kinds of wonderful accommodations. So one member who had begun their transition didn't feel comfortable using the men's room, so we set him up with a bathroom buddy, somebody who would go in and help him and be there as a safe space. It was a nice gesture, but it wasn't a long-term solution. If you go to the next slide, we also put up signs like this. Some of you may have these. Also trying to be welcome, so all are welcome to use the restroom that aligns with their gender identity or expression. But again, it forces folks to use the binary. And I should say the way that our facility is set up, we really only had 2 bathrooms and a tiny little nursery bathroom. So it wasn't as simple as just taking the signs off the wall and making them all gender. So again, at that time then, our justice action team that we had began to ask, well, can we make our bathrooms all gender, and what would that take? And so we realized we need to do a lot of education. We need to also explore how can we do this in our building itself. So we began with various sermons and book studies and things to begin to understand the why, and then also beginning to think about how can we do this in our facility. And so it was probably almost 4 years later that the team brought recommendations to our council. And then COVID hit, and of course everything shut down, and we weren't in our building for 2 years. So in 2021, we convened actually an all-gender bathroom team. That was their title and what they did. And so if you go to the next slide, they quickly realized, as probably for many of you, we needed to have more education about why this was important. And so this is just a list of some of the things that we did. A whole bunch of sermons around trans and gender nonconformity inclusion. We did lots of readings and put in articles in our newsletter. We attended workshops at Lewis and Clark through their Transactive program and taught lots of workshops in our church. We also added a lot of gender diversity books to our library, which already have a lot, but we put in more. And we surveyed other churches about what they had done to accommodate all gender bathrooms. And did a lot of work with our kids because we had more and more youth coming out as trans or non-binary, and how to help our faith development team make a more inclusive space for them. And then I would say the most impactful thing that we did is that we had a panel of some of our trans and non-binary members talking about why this was so important to them. And I will say one of the parents, we had a parent on the panel as well, asked his 22-year-old trans daughter, well, why should we think about changing our bathrooms to all gender? And his daughter's response was, because you are a church. And that's what you do, right? And that if we are to walk the walk, if we're going to talk the talk, we better walk the walk. And this was a concrete act of love. And that if you're not going to welcome us here, how will we be welcomed anywhere? And already so many trans and non-binary folks do not feel welcome in the church. So how can we make them more welcoming? The other thing that we had to do was obviously look at our building and how can we do this. Our all-gender bathroom team contacted during the course of 4 years, almost 17 contractors, had 5 plans and narrowed down to the one that was most cost effective. And then of course we ran into tariffs and all those kinds of things. But finally this spring we had a contractor and a model that we liked, and the contract in hand to do it. So in terms of moving this project along, it took a long time, and I will just say a little bit about some of the pushback that we received within our congregation. And I should also say we share our space with Beit Havarim, which is a Reformed Jewish congregation, and so actually our 2 congregations were working together on this. And in terms of pushback, I would say the biggest thing that we noticed is just how much education we had to do over and over and over again. And really the question about why would we do this for just a handful of people? Well, first of all, it's not just a handful of people, and even if it would still be the right thing to do. But we know the stories of the trans and non-binary people in our church, but we don't know how many people haven't told us their stories. We don't know how many people in Beit Havarim, how many people that come through our building, as many of you all have, lots of community groups, lots of AA groups, grief groups, city council forums, all kinds of people coming through our building, and how many of them aren't safe, and how many people don't come because they know it's not a safe space. I should also say, as with many accommodations, it's not just for trans and non-binary people. As I've said, and as we know, anyone who has a disability and needs assistance, any families who want to use the bathroom as a family, it becomes more inclusive for them as well. Ironically, we got a lot of pushback because we were removing 2 urinals. So sorry guys, we heard from the guys that what were we going to do without our urinals. And it was like, well, do you have one at home? I don't know. Also, they were worried about standing in line. And I'm like, well, welcome to women's life, Another more serious pushback we got was just discomfort and bias. So, what do you mean I have to wash my hands next to someone who's trans? Well, guess what? You're already doing it. You just don't know, Or I'm going to have to go to the bathroom next to somebody of a different gender who's not in my family. And as one of our trans members said, well, again, if you feel a little discomfort, so what? Like, that's what we experience every day, all day. And we know, as with any transformation, we get used to it, and it might just take a little bit of time. And then I would say the last barrier, of course, was cost. and how do you pay for something like this? And so we had 3 things that helped us along the way. First, when we were first talking about this, we put aside some money in case we needed to change the footprint of our building or have architectural drawings. And in the end, we picked the way that would not require us moving any walls or plumbing. So we saved money that way and had that to start with. We had someone in our congregation who heard about the intention and gave us a major gift that covered almost half the cost of the renovation. And then the other thing that happened is at the end of 2024, we ended the year, we had less expenses than we had anticipated. And so we ended with a surplus that was almost identical to what we needed to finish the bathrooms. And so our council voted then to put the money toward the bathroom renovation. So where we are now, if you go to the next slide, this is all very new. This is as of this past Thursday, construction finished. So on the left, you can see the bathrooms. This is initially the women's bathroom, which had 3 stalls, and you can see the gaps at the top and the bottom. And now on the right, there are just 3 all-gender floor-to-ceiling stalls. If you go to the next slide, this is our former men's room. See those 2 urinals you kind of see on the left, long gone now. We have a changing table. This is an all-gender family restroom, so we still have the stall and sinks and then a changing table. And then if you go to the next slide, this was our little teeny tiny, it's hard to tell from this perspective, it was a teeny tiny toilet for our nursery. So now we have a standard size toilet. And what we went was from basically 3 toilets for women, 1 for men, plus 2 urinals, and a toilet for children to now 5 toilets that really anybody can use at any time. And I would say the other things that we'll be doing, one will have a dedication next week to celebrate our new bathrooms. We also would like to put it up and get it out on our website and other places that we have these all-gender bathrooms. And then finally to get on websites like Refuge Restrooms is a website where folks who are trans and non-binary can go online and look up where there are all-gender bathrooms that are safe to use. So we are hopeful that this, as we think about Refugia, is a place where people can come. They know our facility is safe, they can be loved, welcomed, and then out of that place of safety, move into the world and continue to plant those seeds of love and justice and compassion in the world. So thank you.
So I want to invite you now. So I'm going to give you some options. I would like you to either choose one person next to you at your table who you can share with, or choose some art supplies and do some drawing on your own, or take a pen or pencil and paper and do some journaling on your own. So those are your 3 options. Talk to one person, draw, or write. And I'd like you to think about your own story and where you find connections or tensions in your own story and the story that you just heard. And tell each other a story about your own life. What came up for you about your life as you heard this story? And we're going to give you 10 minutes so that you have 5 minutes each to talk about your own story. And I would invite you to actually let one person just talk for 5 minutes, and then I'll tell you that 5 minutes is up, so that we can really listen to each other.